This story comes from the New York Times, and it reflects the state of the auto industry in the U.S. today. Although they featured Rich Marsh, the story could be about every laid off auto worker in the United States, past, present, and future. The story is written by Sabrina Tavernese, and it's about the closing of the Lordstown, Ohio General Motors plant. If you see the headlines carefully, it says, "With his job gone, an auto worker wonders, what am I as a man?" From the article, you can see that Mr. Marsh worked at the plant for 25 years. It's the only real job he has ever had, says the article. Let me read a part of the article. In the week since he lost his job at the car plant, Rich Marsh has blasted Pink Floyd while cleaning the house. He has watched the cat watching the bird. He has smoked cigarettes out the sliding glass door. He has watched the Motor Trend, a TV network about cars. He bought a grill and built a swing set. He has done everything he could to avoid thinking about the fact that after 25 years at the General Motors plant in Lordstown, he was losing the only real job he ever had. For Mr. Marsh, the plant is personal. But in the 3 months since GM stopped making cars there, it has become political. A parade of presidential hopefuls have come through, using the plant to make the point that American capitalism no longer works for ordinary people. Here's a quote from Mr. Marsh. "To me, it's another flagrant sign that these people, they really don't have a clue," Mr. Marsh said of the country's political class. "They are so out of touch with reality and real people, all of them." He made no exception for Mr. Trump. Mr. Marsh voted for him, as did a majority of voters in the Trumbull County, a small square on the map of northeast Ohio that hasn't voted for a Republican for president since 1972. The path to the White House next year runs through places like Lordstown, and Mr. Marsh and many of his neighbors, far from knowing how they will vote, say the GM plant shutdown has only left them more at sea politically. They tried voting for Barack Obama, then Trump. Now they don't know where to turn. "I don't know where to go," he said. "It seems like no matter what he does or tries to do, it doesn't work out." He said of the president, "Well, now what? What the heck do we do? Do we go back to beating our heads against the wall, or do we try something different?" For 3 generations of Marsh men, the GM plant was a golden ticket to a middle-class life in a part of the country where those were not easy to come by. Then when Rick Marsh got the biggest test of his life, the birth of his beloved daughter Abigail, and her diagnosis of cerebral palsy at the age of 1, his job became a central part of how he saw himself. He was her provider, her protector. That was his worth in the world. So when the last car rolled off the Lordstown assembly line around 2:45 p.m. on Wednesday, March 6th. It was like a heart stopping. He had lost the thing that made him who he was. I really don't care if it's a Democrat, Republican, male, female, black, white. I don't care, he said. The article goes on to say, it's humiliating. The end began the day after Mr. Trump's election. On November 9th, 2016, GM announced it was cutting its third shift, an evening crew of about 1,200 people, about 1/4 of the plant's total workforce. Then some months later, a daytime shift was let go, including Mr. Marsh's nephew, who got the layoff notice on the same day that he received a certificate congratulating him on 10 years at the plant. The final cut came last year, a few days after Thanksgiving. The article ended saying that the presidential election is still many months away, and he hasn't started paying attention to any of the candidates. But he plans to watch the debates carefully to see whether any political leader in America understands his family story. The answer has never felt more important. People are going to get hungry. And when I mean hungry, I don't mean just for food, he said. I think once we get pushed to the point that you have nothing left, he said, and paused. Without the ability to feed your family and pay for my children and feed for my children, what am I as a man? People are going to get hungry. And when I mean hungry, I don't mean just for food, he said. I think once you get pushed to a point that you have nothing left, he said, and paused. Without the ability to feed my family and pay for my children and feed my children, what am I as a man? In 1913, when Henry Ford began rolling automobiles off the Ford Motor Assembly line, America was a young world power. Today, as one of the two nations vying for economic control of the planet, this generation of auto workers watch and wait anxiously for the assembly line that they work on to come to a halt. About 10 years ago, then President Obama injected $80 billion into the U.S. auto industry in an attempt to save as many jobs as possible. But sadly for those workers who remain, his attempt appeared to prolong the agony rather than bring long-term solutions. It is not only the auto workers that should be worried in America today. There are few people who are professions who are left out of the retraction that is coming to this economy. And it's not only affected by the downturn in the economic cycle, but the technology as it changes is also going to affect millions of workers. Many people who are today working are not paying attention to the events that are unfolding around them. Some are worried about losing their jobs, but others are just living as happy days are here again. That was the when President Reagan came into office. His motto was "Happy days are here again." I wonder, as we look back to that day, how many people are thinking of these as happy days. Even as the new president, with his slogan of "Make America Great Again," embarked on his presidency in 2016. He knew this was coming, but couldn't tell the average American. Now they're about to find out.